Hello everyone, welcome along. It's Justin Dawson. It's the All Things TechIE podcast, September edition, episode 4. Great show lined up for you. Simon's not in studio with me. Where's Simon? Where is Simon? Simon will be joining us later on, listeners, because we're going to be addressing an interesting topic on education with audiovisual, how people got into the audiovisual sector. But first we want to, of course, the latest news in tech pretty much involves Apple and Samsung, two big rivals with regards to phones and technology, and always doing legal stuff against each other. We're going to be asking you, what is better, the Samsung Galaxy S9 or the iPhone X series? I'll use the word series because Apple have released 3 new devices, listeners, and they're big. They are big. Like to get in contact with the program, you can do so allthingstech.ie. That is allthingstech.ie. Simon will be joining us later on in the program, and you can also hashtag allthingstechie if you want to use Twitter. We are on Twitter individually. At Justin or Dawson is my Twitter handle, or you can also tweet Simon Lang at Simon Lang AB. Let's kick off the show.
All Things TechIE podcast, brought to you by 2 tech junkies, Justin Dawson and Simon Lang. For more, visit www.allthingstech.ie for All Things TechIE.
The year was 2007, listeners, when the first iPhone came out, 3.5 inches. Now, in the year 2018, it has grown an extra 3 inches. Sort of the same size that the mini iPhone X in 2017 was 5.8 inches. Now it's the smallest of the iPhone series. Are you following me? Phones are getting bigger and bigger. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I'd love to hear your comments to allthingstech.ie or hashtag allthingstechie on Twitter, or you can also tweet me at Justin or Dawson. Yeah, so now in the space of 11 years, it's grown 3 inches from the original iPhone of 3.5 inches. iPhone has come out with a series of 3 new phones, and do you want a bigger phone? Like, my thought is, listeners, if I want a big device, I'll buy a tablet. I'll buy a 6, 7, 8 inch Android tablet, Apple tablet, whatever the case may be, because I want to watch movies or whatever. Do people use WhatsApp now and messaging, virtual messaging services, instead of using FaceTime with Apple? Or do you need a phone to be this size? And then I think we're going to be talking about children wanting to have these big 6.5 inch devices. Would you actually give your child one of these for Christmas? Wow, it's only a couple of months away, listeners. That's what I'd love to know, because to be honest, when the device is now costing nearly over €1,000 to buy, or else you go bill pay, but with massive tariffs, do you actually want to give your child one of these devices? Hell no, is my thought. Well, I only have a 1-year-old, and we'd love to hear your comments on it. So it's so long, small phones, it's been real. Earlier in the month, Apple announced its trio of new phones, and with it, the company put the final nail on the coffin for rebooting a small, pocketable iPhone. That's because the new lineup includes the 5.8 inch iPhone XS, the 6.1 inch iPhone XR, and the 6.5 inch XS Max. Do you follow this, listeners? Like, the names of these phones just confuse me. Like, why call it the XS? S would, in my view, would be small, but SS Max is a maximum size of 6.5 inches. Okay, suddenly last year's biggest iPhone is now this year's smallest option. Couple that with the fact that Apple is now discontinuing the 4-inch iPhone SE, and this all means one thing: abandon all hope of ever owning a new small smartphone, iOS, Android, or whatever you have. And we will be looking at what is better, the Samsung Galaxy S9 or the iPhone X series. The world of top smartphones has polarized in a few years into two distinct factions, Apple or Android. Personally, I'm an Android fan simply because it gives me a wider range of choice. I can't grasp my head around the iCloud, and I like to be able to, choose which way my phone is programmed and what apps I want to have on it in comparison to buy all into Apple. That's a personal decision for me, listeners. It's been easy to say that Apple's iPhone X design is slightly fresher than the Samsung S9 because Samsung choose to keep the design of the Galaxy S8, meaning it's familiar. Yet, familiarity, that's one key factor of many people using Android phones. Samsung was the first to curve the edges of its phone and get creative with the display forming, and it was one of the first to push out the 16:9 widescreen format. Essentially, it led the way to shifting the display aspect which dominates device designs in 2018. The Samsung Galaxy S9 is a 5.8-inch 2960 by 1440 pixels, 570 ppi rather, and OLED, as is the iPhone with OLED 5.8 inch, exact same size, but 2436 by 1125. I guess that's because of the curve. I believe so. Both the S9 and the X have the same size, both are OLED, and both source from Samsung's display, so you will find some similarities there. On the spec sheet there is a difference, with the S9 offering a much higher resolution, resulting in the 570 ppi compared to the 458 ppi of the iPhone X. However, Samsung defaults to a lower resolution for normal use, running at 2220 by 1080 pixels. At the same resolution, there's very difference between the terms of sharpness. However, if you look at them closely enough, you can tell the difference when you change the settings resolutions. So Samsung are going for the screen, the vividness. Going with the size again, I'm not a fan of having such a large phone. Processors, the Samsung Galaxy S9 comes with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 or the Exynos, I think it's pronounced 9810, where the iPhone X comes with an A11 Bionic with M11 Motion co-processor. So the cameras, Samsung S9 have a 12 megapixel dual pixel dual aperture 1.5 f-stop and 2.4 f-stop. The iPhone X has the same 12 megapixel dual camera, f1.8 wide angle, and second f2.4 zoom lens with OIS. So what's better? It's hard to say. But by God, isn't it gone to the world where you don't have to actually buy a camera unless you want it? Like the f-stops on these are so vivid now on some of the phones. Whatever happened to just making phone calls? Samsung Galaxy S9 and the iPhone X software wise has Galaxy Android Oreo with Samsung experience, user experience, and the iPhone has the iPhone X iOS 11. The iPhone X carries the latest version of Apple's operating system, updating in line with the rest of the Apple universe, with its priority in features across the pretty much all Apple devices. The iPhone X offers a slightly different take on the user interaction, with a swipe gesture to bypass the need for a home button. It's slick and it's fast. The Samsung Galaxy S9 offers Android Oreo with Samsung user experience over the top. This adds to the completely new Android while retaining its core functions and Google services. And that's what I like about the Samsung phones. I have to say it's very It's easy to use with Google, I believe. That's just personally my opinion. The prices. Now, this is where it gets interesting, listeners. The Samsung Galaxy S9 retails at £749, while the iPhone X is £999. It's £250 cheaper than the iPhone X. Even the larger Galaxy S9 is £130 cheaper than the iPhone X. Is it enough to get you buying either of these phones? And what happened to the 5G on the iPhone? Virtually all of the major players in the wireless industry are scrambling to tie their fortunes to 5G. Verizon will launch its 5G home wireless broadband next month, apparently. It's announced. Sprint and LG in the States want to bring out the first smartphone using the next generation technology. When will it hit Ireland? Probably 2022, 23, 24, 25. We don't know. It's very slow to get going here in Ireland. Even sure, we're trying to still rough out the edges of getting faster Wi-Fi against the rural areas, and with one contractor still in. Have you bought a Samsung S9 or an iPhone X series? We'd love to hear from you. You can tweet me at Justin or Dawson, or you can visit our website, allthingstech.ie. The main purpose of today's show, listeners, is about a month ago during the summer, I put up a long blog of the Irish state exams, which is called the Leaving Cert. And since then, there has been even a programme on RTE Television, our national television broadcaster, where a DJ went back and did his Leaving Cert again. Now, I am not afraid to admit that I got 205 points in the Leaving Cert. Why did I get 205 points in the Leaving Cert? Well, I was one of these children that wasn't really interested in studying the English, Irish, maths, geography, science, language to get top points, which is about 650 points. I think it's the top amount of points now. Forgive me if I'm wrong, maybe it's 600. But I knew that I wanted to do TV and radio production in college. I had a portfolio of doing pirate radio beforehand, and I got into college on the basis of having 2 higher level subjects plus my interest in radio. Once I got into college, I got straight A's in my diploma, degree, and in my master's. So it's the difference of, in my view, studying what you love. So with that topic in mind, I wrote an article on LinkedIn, and I've got quite a following of the article, and people going, I can relate to this. And even the 2FM DJ from RT TV and radio, he went back and did his Leaving Cert again after 10 years. And even got 350 odd points in the program. But his emphasis was that it's not going to change the way he operates in the past 10 years from doing his Leaving Cert to now, as he still found that it was a very stressful exam to repeat after 10 years. And then my wife was actually doing maths grinds for a neighbour's daughter, and looking back at the maths book just gives me chills, listeners. So with that, I thought with Simon, well, what tips can we give for people that want to get into the audiovisual industry in Ireland? And then we thought that's being a bit specific. So what tips would we give to people that want to get into audiovisual, full stop? So as we did this program, we noticed it's going to turn into a series because loads of AV tweeps around the world wanted to get involved in the show. So this is going to run over September's month, or episode 4 into episode 5, and we have some great people lined up. In this month's episode, we talked to Joe Way, Krista Bender, James Scott, Jonathan Owen, and of course I first started off speaking with Simon Lang and asked him how he got involved in the AV industry.
Yeah, so I actually had to go back and remind myself the titles from my LinkedIn profile. That's bad when you can't remember them off the titles. So
Mm.
I did basically a sound technology certificate to start off with.
Mm.
And the whole point of that was a 1 year course to go, do I like this or not like it? It's only a year if I do, it's only a year if I don't,
Okay.
kind of thing. So I loved it, as you can imagine. So then I went on and did a diploma for 2 years in music production in Ballyfermot College, which is in Dublin. So it's a smaller college in Dublin, but it's very music and arts orientated in the sense of art, as in animation art and all that
Mhm.
kind of, as well as other things. But that's what they're probably very well known for, is their music courses. And then I had an add-on year to make it a degree, with a joint between Thames University, which is now called West London University.
Mhm.
Of, I would have said my courses were oriented towards people going into live concert venues, music studios, that kind of orientation. Where if you look at the people who I work with who are in higher AV higher, you have another totally different side. You have a visual side that was not really covered in our course. Like, we would have done a web design, but we wouldn't have done visual mixing. I think even and having a networking module now as part of the course, I think is essential, will be essential as a real basic Cisco. But
Yeah.
one of my guys who work with me comes from a college in Dunleary, but it was definitely sound orientated when he did it as well, where there wasn't very much visual. Like, the closest would you nearly get is, like, in Ballyfermot there was a TV production, so the TV were closest probably to the end product that we would need, but it's probably heavy TV, where we need visual in the sense of a lot more visual mixing, visual routing, understanding HDMI. I think when I came out of college, my closest to what I wanted to do when I was coming out of college was I got to work a whole weekend on Justin Timberlake in the Tree Arena. Then I actually couldn't get a job for a few years. My LinkedIn profile, there was a gap between college and when I actually started in this role, where I actually went back to my roots, which was in a different industry completely to this. But it's kind of funny, the industry has actually merged. So I worked for hardware shops, or DIY stores. If you're in the States, you probably know them. This job, this current project, has been probably the first time the two of them have meshed, because I understand builders now. I understand, so there's no pulling a wool over my eyes in terms of building work, because I understand what's going on. I definitely think you need to have an audiovisual grounding for this, to be able to work in this industry. You need some form of a theory in sound, or some kind of visual, like in your case, radio or television or sound engineering. You need to definitely have a basis, but I think there's lots of add-on things you need to be able to do. I'd be pushing for doing some form of networking Cisco qualification, or even having some IT knowledge under your belt as well. Like, when I joined PwC, my role was actually an AV and IT support role. So I was kind of 50-50. So a lot of the stuff I solved out on the floor was often more IT related, but it impacted AV, because usually it was 2 minutes before a presentation, something wasn't working right in your computer, trying to solve it so the computer would be working so you could present. So you do need a bit of an IT. So I wouldn't say there's one course that fits all, but I definitely think you need to have an audio-visual sound. If I was in college and they told me I had one module a week of an hour or 2 hours a week to work towards completing my CTS by the end of the summer, I would tell people jump at that, because the grounding in that is just amazing. That there's so much broad amount of technology in for the AV. So if you walked out of college with your degree or your diploma and a CTS qualification, I think you're really set up for career in audiovisual. And then I would say part-time jobs. I would definitely get out there and even do a little bit on a radio station if you're into radio, even go into an AV hire company and go, I'm available at weekends for some work, as freelance work, that kind of way. Because the stuff that's thrown at you when you're out on the road, and yes, I know the hours are horrible, and sometimes the events can be extremely boring and dull. We know it. We've sat through those financial presentations, and we're nearly we're losing our will to live. But you need the experience of connecting it up, running your cables around, positioning your speakers, testing your mics, what to do when the projector won't boot up and it's 15 minutes before rehearsal. You can't get an image up on the projector, and you're there, you're working with possibly some of the most experienced senior AV technicians in that higher company,
Yes.
and trying to resolve it between you, and they're banging heads, and your opinion counts just as much as the senior person's. So you're learning from them, they're learning from you, and if all else fails, Google kicks in because the phones all come out and everyone is like Googling this, Googling that. And to be honest, we all don't look for manuals anymore. We just Google. I think I think you need to do the college qualification. I think even higher companies are now being picky. I worked on a few PA speakers. Okay, that's nice. What's your qualification? They want some kind of background of proof of your ability. And so even if it's a certificate and then maybe a CTS or something like that, at least it's proved you've done some learning. And then when you're in the door, the manufacturer training should kick in. Even if it's privately by yourself, if the company doesn't pay for it, but maybe then that gives you a better place in the company when you turn around and go, well, I'm working for David Company. I've just completed a Christie module on projector warping and wrapping and making 360 projection displays and all this kind of stuff. And they're going, really? We have something coming up though. We need someone with that skill.
Yes. Well, not only do we have Simon Lang's view, my co-host, we also have, now I better get all these names and titles right, Joe Way, Director of Multimedia Services at California Baptist University, Krista Bender, Client Services Manager at Pivot Communications, James Scott, the AV Digital Media and Events Tech at the University of Hertfordshire, and Jonathan Owen, he is the IT AV Service Owner of Learning Spaces and Collaborative Environments at the Uni of Warwick. Thank you for joining us, guys, and we're going to wrap it up in you telling us how you got involved in audiovisual. Was it always your main interest? What would you be doing instead? And what tips you have for the future of people that's coming into audiovisual. So let's start off with yourself, Joe. How did you get involved in audiovisual?
Originally went to the University of Southern California for the recording engineering program, which is considered the best in the world. It's been ranked that way for decades. And but I just happened to find a professor who I absolutely loved, and I had done a lot of mixing and live mixing for a lot of very popular bands, and had gophered at a number of the different recording studios throughout LA. And so it bored me to go through all the theory classes and the music theory classes. So I ended up finding a professor I love, got my degree in philosophy, and then I ended up getting my master's in applied biblical studies and my PhD in technically theology at church production. So I ended up taking my 25 years in the entertainment industry, which is where I really made all my money, in the business development side of the entertainment industry, and kind of combined that full circle.
So I am Krista Bender, and my current position is I am a client services manager for Pivot Communications.
So my name's Jonathan Owen. I work for the University of Warwick. I'm the service owner for learning spaces and collaborative environments.
Yeah, so I'm James Scott, and I'm currently a events and digital media technical specialist.
Well, the first time around in college, I studied mostly general studies and a lot of arts and science. I did a lot of pottery. And no, I wasn't a fan of the movie Ghost, but I did a lot of pottery first time around. And then I took a break and started working full time. And then I got into AV because my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he was in AV. And he knew of a position that was opening up at a company. So I went and applied, and I started working at an integrator in the inside sales department there. So I worked there at that integrator for 10.5 years, and while I was there, got various manufacturer certifications, got my CTS, and then I left that integrator to go work for another integrator for a few years. And now I am working for a marketing company that focuses on the audiovisual industry.
Well, actually, I came from the theatre background.
Okay.
So I all through the school, I was a sort of the theatre drama technician all through school. And then at college, I did a BTEC high national diploma in theatre technology.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I went to a drama college where I did a Bachelor of Arts in lighting design.
Right.
So I thought I'd be a lighting technician or designer for either the stage or concerts or drama shows.
Stuff. I didn't really study anything, so I didn't actually end up going to university at all. Okay. So I drifted into audio visual. So I finished college. I went traveling for a few months to figure out what I wanted to do. Came back, needed to earn some money, and got a job as a kind of conference assistant doing AV at a conference centre. So that was my kind of introduction to the AV industry. Found I quite enjoyed it because it's quite varied and you got to play with lots of technology. I've always quite liked technology. Used to play guitar in a band and different things like that. But yeah, really just stumbled into it by accident at the very beginning.
So the church that I had been around needed a tech director. So I went in one day and basically, had started dating a girl, got a fiance and basically a job in the same day. And just ended up turning my business down, closing it, and then becoming a tech director at one of the larger churches down here in Orange County. And it was then that while I was, overseeing that, and there was a big upgrade going on at that time, some new direction, and we were putting in a lot of new technologies, that I realized that when you're working in a church, your job is bigger than being AV. Because I would have a lot of volunteers who would work with me on the weekends, right? And then they would come to me and say, what did the pastor mean by X, Y, Z? And I was thinking, oh, that's the pastor. What does it mean?
No, I'm just the sound guy.
But that's what made me recognize that, wow, I have a job with a purpose now. Mm-hmm. And the purpose isn't just a paycheck.
Well, at the time when I was going to college, the first time I was torn. I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a teacher. And then I switched over to sports medicine. Mm-hmm. And then obviously I did neither of those. And then when I went back to school the second time to get my bachelor's, I focused on getting a degree in organizational leadership because I figured whatever I did then that would kind of, run the gamut. So it's still not quite AV or technology focused, but I figured that degree would serve me better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I didn't know that AV was really a job or an industry because I don't recall my high school having like an AV club. Like a lot of people say their high schools had that, and we didn't have it, so I wasn't aware. And we still had blackboards and overhead, projectors that they would bring in on the carts. So I knew what AV was, but not to what it is, currently.
I did the first ever. I did the original CTS when it came to the UK, which was Infocom back then. Mm-hmm. I did CTSD, the first course in the UK, and failed, actually, interestingly. In hindsight, probably took that a little bit too early in my career. But generally, as opportunities arose at kind of Warwick, I'd take any training, whether it was manufacturer training, hands-on. But I guess the vast amount of experience I gained was actually on the job, working with technicians and colleagues, and just getting stuck in.
From the university, really, before then it was just sort of learn on the job type stuff. And then once at the university, I got a good manager, Adam Harvey, who's sort of quite keen, and he's sort of got me through some of the Avixa courses. Mm-hmm. And then that was sort of leading up to the CTS.
And you've completed your CTS, haven't you?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So what's next on are you going to aim for D or I with the CTS?
well, there's a possibility of going towards the eye, but
wait and see. It's very hard when you have a small family and you say, yeah, I'm going to do this eye, and then you open up the book and go, actually, maybe that was a bad idea. No, I'll just park it over there underneath my coffee cup for a week long.
I think that will swallow up a bit of time, yeah.
I've been a member of the HSMG for quite a number of years, and it was also a good group for exchanging knowledge and learning things. Certainly as I kind of went into more management roles, I need to kind of reach out and ask for advice of colleagues at different universities. So it was a really kind of valuable kind of social network, really, which helped me develop. And then, fairly recently, kind of 18 months ago, hosted the HSMG conference at Warwick, and I got the opportunity to take on the role of chair, which was a big challenge at the time, and there's been lots of change since then. But yeah, it's been a challenging time, but certainly myself and the other guys that have been helping me move the group forward, we've relished it really. But it's all good experience.
The manufacturer courses like the Extron and Crestron courses, they've got their right of place, I think. Yeah, most definitely. But I think starting out, probably go towards either the CEDIA or the AVIXA side of things.
When you're dealing with electrical contractors sometimes, or the on-site contractors, maybe not the architect, but the contractors that are putting up the building that the AV company has to work with to get the project done. A lot of times they don't tend to have women on site, and probably don't deal with women. So I sometimes find those scenarios where I will be the only woman on doing a site visit, and that's fine, because I'm totally fine with opening my mouth and saying what needs to be said, but I do find an element that it can be a little interesting still and challenging, because they may sometimes, not all the time, it seems like they may want to brush off what I have to say, but it is really important to getting the project done correctly. I do feel having the CTS certification after my name has helped, because it shows I've taken the time to learn and do things. I mean, I know anybody can do a test and whatnot, but I really do feel that the information I learned along the way to take that has helped me. And then I do feel that certain manufacturing certifications have helped. It depends upon the client. If they're, if they were an AMX house, then if with my AMX certifications, then, it was really easy, or Extron, or, whatever, Kramer, whatever certifications I have or don't have, let's just pretend. If it's the Krista certification and they're a Krista house, then it worked out.
I wouldn't be afraid now to sort of use Twitter as a tool to get contacts, and I think nowadays people are quite open to the idea of mentoring.
My team sit within IT services at the university, and it always has done. I think over the last 5 years, we've become more converged internally, and it's very difficult for us to do large projects without the involvement of IT, whether that's on an infrastructure level, networking, network security, even as far as information security now with technology choices we make. So it's impossible to avoid. Certainly AV over IP is a huge thing in the industry, as you know, and you'd be a fool to ignore it. But I think it works both ways. We're trying to learn from our colleagues in IT. They're trying to learn from us, and I think we have to meet in the middle sometimes.
Well, I think going for the AVIXA first and foremost. I mean, that is the one that you've got to do first. I mean, I'd say that hands down. But I do believe there are some other good manufacturers training, and it's about knowing your craft.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if you're assuming that people are to get into it or those who have the job, right? Like if I were a sound guy somewhere, I were running the theater at our university here, and we've got, a Yamaha CL5. Well, I should be calling up Yamaha and figuring out how to, get as trained as I can, and not just, right, because it's about being a master of my craft, and it's about, being able to keep my job, to be honest, right? So yeah, and I think there are a lot of good ones. I mean, just to give a plug, I'd say Extron's AV technologist is phenomenal. It's a very basic, it's like, it's CTS light, like CTS really, really light, but I think it's actually a good general knowledge of how a modern AV system works.
Okay.
And that's dirt cheap, like $99, and anyone can afford that, right? So I think that's a good one. But then getting into the manufacturer trainings, understanding how they work, it's only going to make you more employable, and depending upon what area of AV you want to go into. So if you wanted to be in higher ed, we'll call up Extron, call up Crestron, call up AMX, get in their training programs, invest. I mean, let's just be honest. College tuition is expensive, right? Yes. Let's say, for example, where we're at, our tuition is $30,000 a year.
Okay, wow.
Now,
it's much more. You can nearly double what you pay in the States as what you would pay in Ireland. And you know that as well from being over in Birmingham and doing your PhD.
Yep. But now look at it this way. When people say, they would do a manufacturer's training somewhere, fly out to Crestron in Jersey or Extron here in Anaheim, and you want to pay for the course $299 or $399, we go, oh my God, it's so expensive. Really? Compared to college tuition?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And so even if you invested $2,000 in your own manufacturer's training and you wanted to get into higher ed and you put in an application and you said, here, I have a basic, CTS, or even taking CTS off the table, and you knew what classroom systems that university had, and you could say, look, I'm a control professional with Extra. I also, have basic Sure knowledge. I have whatever, so I'm comfortable in every one of your systems. Tell me that's not hireable.
Okay.
Right? And it costs you almost nothing to do.
And would that be seen with your type of HR departments as more valid than someone that comes in and has a master's or a PhD?
It would depend upon this, on the position, but I would say in a support role, in a tech role, absolutely.
Yes.
Right. Because they're going to know. And here's the thing. They probably have no clue what it means.
Yes.
But the person hiring you would.
Yes.
Right. I mean, I just went through this a year ago when I brought on the person who works for me and under me. And, I brought him in because he knew the systems. There were other people who were very qualified, had the right demeanor, had the right drive. But
they have the skills.
He flat out knew the classroom systems up and down, back and forth. And like, you don't pass on that.
Right.
Right. And I think so therefore I think those are important. And if that's for going into a university situation, but if you wanted to go into live, well, I mean, you can take Avid classes. You can do, you name it. There are so many things. If you wanted to mix, get certified in, the entire Adobe Creative Suite. There are certain things that you could, depending on the area you want to go into, that you could get that somebody who is a hiring manager for a position would understand. I think a bachelor's degree nowadays is expected.
Yes.
But if you don't have a bachelor's, you better be an expert in your craft.
And I would say very similar over here in Ireland. Like a master's is just seen as a norm now with regards to a job front. Do you think there's enough variety of courses then available for audiovisual?
Once I teach mine, there will be. No, I'm just kidding. No. I would say, I'm going to give it a yes. My instinct was to say no, because I think you can always have more. But I join all those Avixa webinars when I can. I try to, even if I can't always do it, I think I sign up for every one of them. And if I'm available, I log into it. But that's also because it's a personal drive to know more.
Yes.
Right. So isn't it more about the person than it is the availability? Someone who wants to learn will do. Because, for example, when I came into the university 2 years ago, I'm not sure that I ever used an Extron control. I probably did. I probably walked in somewhere and hit the on button on it, but I couldn't tell you if I did.
Yes.
But because my role was to develop classroom standards and systems, I had to get in there and learn them all. So
Right.
It was a drive for me to then become the expert in that, because it's what I needed to do for my role. And I do believe there are enough, if that's where you want to focus to. And let's just be honest. I mean, the manufacturers want you trained.
We were in the process of building a degree apprenticeship center.
Okay.
And for me, that's, the future. That could be a good route into the AV industry, actually. So to get your degree, get the qualifications you need, do some practical work with an employer and learn on the ground, which you need to do, but also gain the qualification. I think if that option was available to me, all those years ago, it's probably one I'd certainly look at taking.
Come try it, because it's a really big little industry, but there's a lot of things to do within the industry. So if you come into the industry in whatever capacity, if it's from a technical end or a non-technical end, you can always come in and then get more technical if you find that you really enjoy it, and get then go learn, get certifications, and become more technical. And then if you're technical, you can always expand upon that as well and move up the ladder, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to some people may be afraid because they're introverts and they don't like to talk to people, but don't be afraid to ask people questions. I mean, I love when I'll be at a trade show or something, and I get to actually meet people in person, and then we get to talking, and then somebody squeals for joy when they see me, or I squeal for joy when I see somebody, because it's like, oh, I've always wanted to talk to you, and if you're a person that has some time on your hand, volunteer and be a part of things. I spend a lot of time volunteering for Avixa. I'm part of their content and learning committee, which used to be the PETC committee. I'm a part of the women of Avixa, the Avixa Women's Council. So I help out with that. And that's because I really like the industry and I want to see it get better. I mean, I've spent 15 years in it so far. I'd like to spend at least another 15, if not more. So I want it to be better than what it was.
Well, there you have it. This podcast recorded over the month of September, with people telling us how they got involved in audiovisual. And we have more people lined up next month, listeners, including Chuck Espinoza. He is the senior trainer at Avixa. Chris Netto hopefully will have on as well, and Mark Coxon. Mark has an interesting background of how audiovisual obviously wasn't his number one choice when he was studying. We'll be hearing from Mark as well. If you are listening into the program and want to tell us how you got involved in audiovisual, we love to hear from you. You can tweet us at Justin or Dawson is my Twitter handle, or you can tweet Simon at SimonLangAV. The guys that have been on the program, they're all AV tweeps, and I'm sure you can reach out to them as well, or you can visit us on our website, www.allthingstech.ie. I want to really thank all the listeners for sending in best wishes as I enter into a week to go before the AV Mag 20th AV Awards in London, in the Grosvenor Park Hotel in London. Really looking forward to the finals. Shortlisted for AV Professional of the Year. Getting into the final once more has been such an accolade for me, and anything extra is just icing on the cake. So thank you all for your warm wishes, and really appreciate the comments that have come into me in the past fortnight or so. Next month, because we didn't get to it, Apple is clearly working on augmented reality glasses. Apple has brought Aconia Holographics, a Colorado-based startup dedicated to the manufacturing displays for augmented reality glasses. In addition to other recent purchases, this is an extremely strong indicator that Cupertino company is working on AR glasses. Or is it just a rumour? We'll be talking about that next month in episode 5 of All Things TechIE. Thanks to our guests, Joe Way, Krista Bender, James Scott, Jonathan Owen, and for you, the listener, for listening in. Of course, Simon Lang, who also was on the programme. Simon and I not in studio together this time, simply because really busy month of September. We'll be back together in October. And as well, Avixa Roundtable is coming over to Dublin in October, so I'm sure we'll be giving you the highlights of that too. From myself, Justin, and Simon, who is back at work, working on project work, thank you for listening, and see you next month.
All Things TechIE podcast, brought to you by two tech junkies, Justin Dawson and Simon Lang. For more, visit www.allthingstech.ie for All Things TechIE.